what you guys have done since this pandemic started and all of the chaos and the challenges that have gone on here in the last 8.5 months has been absolutely phenomenal. And you'll see some of the slides in here. I put some of that stuff in there, but a ton of respect. Love following your program and love following how close you guys are and how hard you play and all the things you do. And there's a very specific reason why my presentation is titled How Champions Grow Through Adversity, because we often talk about, hey, we got to go through this. Let's get through this, right? But the big thing is the big key to success is to actually grow through it. So when you get to the other side of whatever that piece of adversity is that you're dealing with, you're better for it. You're a better person. You're a better teammate. You're a better family member. You're a better leader. And there's an opportunity here. Are you doing the best you can? And I want you to think about this, not just take it for words, but are you doing the best you can with what you have to become the best you are capable of becoming? And there's really a lot there to unpack. So are you doing the best you can emotionally, physically, and mentally? Okay. And we'll talk a little bit more about the emotional and mental part. Physically, are you taking care of yourself? I know you guys are. I know you're pushed. I know you're challenged. I know you focus on nutrition and what have you, but are you doing the best you can physically, mentally, emotionally with what you have? Now, let's really think about that. What do you have? Okay. You have your strengths, you have your skill sets, you have your support group, right? You have your academic advisors, you have your family, you have your coaching staff, you have your friends. Okay. But here's something else that you have that I really want to focus on is your circumstances. And the one thing that you all know, and you'll learn more and more, just when you think you know it, you learn it even more, is that your circumstances do not define you. Okay. But how you respond, not react to those circumstances, how you respond to those circumstances will absolutely determine the level of success that you experience. Okay. And then to become the best you are capable of becoming, we'll never tap into our full potential. We don't even know what our full potential is. But are you getting 1% better today? Okay. And are you going to be your best even if you're not at your best? Okay. And that's it. Are you competing every single day to get better? I hurt for these kids and the relationships with the players in the family, the familia feel and the, growing through things and the struggles. That's what I miss. Yeah, you miss the game winners, you miss all that, but I miss the process leading up to that. And one of the big things is you've got to recognize athletics are a microcosm of life, okay? And they're a frame of mind game. But here's what this pandemic and this stuff that we're going through, all the other stuff that we're going through, when you get to the other side of this, and you will at some point, we don't know when, and it's not on us to set that expiration date, all right, or set that expectation. But when you get to the other side of this, you're going to be able to look back and you're going to run a feedback loop and you'll be like, you know what? I did get better and I did grow, and here's how I did that. But in order to do that, you got to get real about the emotions that you're experiencing. Like I come from that school of thought, and way back when, like put your head down, plow through it, work through it, operate, just like nothing's bothering you. Just have a stone face, and years later, that stuff will come back to haunt you. Okay, so some of the emotions that you're going to experience during adversity, especially right now in the pandemic: doubt, fear, helplessness, anger, anxiety, confusion. And a lot of that's all the result of what? It's a result of the uncertainty. It's a result of the unknown and how fluid every single situation is. And that every day, even when you guys do everything that you're supposed to do, everything that you're asked to do, you're still going to have games canceled. You're still going to have practice pushed back. You're still going to have to wear a mask. Okay? Things are still going to change, even though you're doing everything you've been asked to do. And that's part of the whole situation. I really love watching the evolution of Kobe throughout his career. I mean, I remember, Coach Haith when Gerald played with him in a McDonald's game, right? I remember that. I mean, it's still JB every now and then still post those pictures on social, and watching him grow. What people don't realize about the whole Mamba mentality, part of it was the fact that a snake sheds its skin, okay? And it evolves and it grows and it becomes something new. And when I talk about putting your oxygen mask on first during adversity, and now be vulnerable, this is something that is going to sound really sketchy to some folks. Be vulnerable. Doesn't that mean powerless? Doesn't that mean weak? No, absolutely it doesn't. What it means is that you're willing to open up and ask questions. It means that you might be having trouble working through something. You know, one of the biggest challenges for folks your age right now is mental health. And it's a very serious, it's a very real thing. It's a very serious. I lost this past year one of my close friends who probably the toughest human being I know. Is from the South Side, Brother Rice High School, college hooper, business owner. I'm just an incredible human being. And I talked to him 2 days before he took his own life. And he told me he was hanging on by a shoestring. And I literally thought Sean meant monetarily with this high-end yoga studio that he started down in the Loop in Chicago. And that was the last conversation I had with Sean. Okay. So you got to understand how mental health, how important it is. So be vulnerable, because here's the thing. When you open up to a coach, you open up to a family member, or you open up to a teammate, what really might end up happening, well, first of all, a level of trust you're going to keep building between each other is mind blowing. But what ends up happening, and I'll talk about this later in the presentation, you might actually help them more than they help you and not know that you're doing so. And here's a key with the emotions while you're going through it. Label them and then move on. Label the emotions, what they mean to you in your world, and then move on and get on to the next play. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Now, this little dude here is my son, EJ. Okay. EJ is 6 years old. This picture is taken. He was still 5 years old. It was this summer. It was a Thursday night. And my wife and I are going out to dinner. And they're like, why can't we have a family date night? I said, okay, fine. I thought I could get out of it. I'm like, well, here's the deal. You guys can have a family date night if you pick out your wardrobe, get yourself dressed, and be at the door ready to go by 6 o'clock. Well, little man put this on himself. He's got that whole get up going. He was proud as a peacock, okay? And perspective talks about, what is important to you, and the big part is what isn't important to you, and it helps shape your point of view. And you think about all the things you guys have participated in this off season, okay? And since the pandemic has started, the get out the vote, right? The Black Lives Matter, the Black Wall Street March which was amazing, okay? Puts things in perspective, and I think it's something we need now more than ever, okay? So this was a Thursday night. That Saturday, I was bringing the family to meet a bunch of my football guys from high school for the first time. We all hadn't been together in 25 years, okay? And it was a perfect day. Kids were having a blast. Wives were getting along great, having a ton of laughs. It was a perfect day till it wasn't, okay? This was little man with about 10 minutes to go before we left the house. It was a farm, horses, dogs, four-wheelers, amazing cookout. And his buddy, the Siberian Husky, who he followed around, we were there 3 weeks earlier, they're inseparable. Something spooked the dog attacked him, okay? It got him from eyeball to eyeball. Very blessed that that's, no eyes or anything like that. But here's what I learned. You think you're close to your family. We've all been through tragedies in our life. And this may not seem tragic, but it was very dramatic at the time. And to watch your wife, turn into mama bear and take care of her son, and to watch his sister, who was 8, make sure she took care of him. But here's what happened to me this summer as we were going through this, and I was worried about the business and all this stuff. This little kid right here put things in perspective for his family. He talked about, Dad, I've got my eyesight. I can go back and play sports. He still loves dogs, okay, much to the angst of his mother, all right? He calls it his scratch. But here's the thing. He never, ever, ever sulked, complained, or pouted. And when you think about the people in your world and the minor stuff they go through, grown people, right? And you watch some of this nonsense on social media. I mean, when you reframe adversity, it becomes so powerful. It becomes such a catalyst. Adversity is not something that happens to us. It is something that happens for us. I do an exercise, and if you guys have a pen and paper, go ahead and write this down. And I actually can email it to Coach Haith, and he can get it to everybody. I've got a Word doc set up with it. And when you think about the power of flipping this, right? Because get away from the victim mentality. It happens for us. So you take a piece of paper, at the top of that piece of paper, write what your circumstance is. It could be something to do with basketball, something to do with your girl, something to do with your social life, with academics, anything, family, anything. Underneath that circumstance, write what feelings you've got, what emotions you're feeling, And you've got to own those. Okay. That gives you, the ability to own those feelings and then label them, move on. That's it. They're there. Now you get to the stuff where all of a sudden you're going, and you've got to understand something at your age. If you really do this, if you just try this once, promise me you'll try it once. If you do this, you're ahead of the curve. All right. You're developing a skill set, a life skill set that'll help you 20 years down the road. Okay. I have 60-year-old grown men making close to 8 figures that do this exercise with me. Okay. On the left side of the piece of paper, write for me. And then on the right side of the piece of paper, write to me. And then take your time and start with the for me. And write down, if you view this piece of adversity as something that's happening for me, what are the opportunities that are presenting themselves? What's there? Okay, what's there that might not have been there had this not happened? This gentleman right here is Deon Thomas. And over the course of the last 5 years, Deon and I have become like brothers. Okay, he's as good of a man as I know. Deon grew up on both the south and the west side of Chicago. And if you know anything about Chicago, that's a little bit odd. Okay, it's a little bit dangerous too. When his grandmother raised him, they used to eat dinner on the floor because of the random bullets. Deon's mom was a drug addict. Dad wasn't in the picture. His brother was kind of running around. And Deon was tall. And Deon he wasn't interested in basketball until 7th or 8th grade. And he realized basketball could take him somewhere. And what people don't know about Deon, when he got to college, Jimmy Collins took him under his wing. And Jimmy convinced Deon that he could have a career after college. Well, he's the all-time leading scorer. He's the all-time leading scorer at the University of Illinois, still to this day. He graduated, I think it was 93 he graduated. He's a year younger than me. His goal was to make enough money in the NBA to pay for law school in cash. Because Deon wanted to go back and help the people out in the neighborhood. He wanted to make something of his life so he could pay back. But control the controllable. And you think about this, like folks worry about stuff all the time, especially right now with this pandemic. They're worried about things they can control and they can influence, right? They're worried about things that they can't control, maybe influence, and then they're worried about things that they can't control and can't influence. All we can focus on is what are the things that we can control today, all right? And what are those things? Don't have a victim mentality. Now, I know y'all know who Doc Rivers is, but growing up the son of a pretty well-respected high school basketball coach, I was in a lot of circles as a little kid, as I mentioned. Doc was one of my guys growing up, okay? Proviso East High School. I went to a camp where Doc would always work, the Milwaukee Bucks, the medalist camp. Al McGuire was there, Hank Ramons, Rick Majerus. But Doc was always around. And Doc was always one of the guys that I looked up to and followed his college career and then his pro career. And I was elated when he got into coaching. And his dad was a Chicago police officer. And Doc tells the story about a time when he was, I believe, 3rd grade. And the teacher wanted them to get up in front of the class and say, state your name and what you want to do for a living when you grow up. Okay. So he got up, he said, my name is Glenn Rivers. He didn't get the nickname Doc till he was at Marquette. He said, my name is Glenn Rivers and I want to play in the NBA. She said, Glenn, sit down. He was a complete class clown. Glenn, sit down. Got up a second time. My name is Glenn Rivers. I want to play in the NBA. Sit down. 3rd time, same thing. She sent him home. Well, how would you like to go home knowing your dad's a Chicago police officer working a midnight shift and he's waiting at home for you? Okay. So his dad does what every good dad does, walks him back to school and says, what's the deal? But what he did next, as it got to school, he got down on his knees, looked Doc in the eye and said, Doc, listen, here's the deal. You may or may not be an NBA basketball player, but your teacher's right. If you don't change the way you act, if you don't change the way you behave and think, you might not be good at anything. He goes, but you've got to promise me one thing, that you'll always finish the race. And then in addition to that, he talked about never, ever feel like the victim. Well, Doc goes on, and when he's playing at San Antonio, his house is burnt to the ground right away. Okay. He said, I am not a victim. But then the Donald Sterling debacle happened several years ago with the Clippers. The owner made these racial remarks about his girlfriend who was posing with Magic Johnson, posting on social media. It was awful. And the way Doc got sideblinded with it was awful. And Doc talks about how difficult it was for him to come face his team. And he didn't know really what to say to them. And he got up in front of them. And the first thing he said He said, "My name is Glenn Rivers. I am a black man from Maywood, Illinois, and I refuse to have a victim mentality." And I think that's so hard right now because it's so easy with the people that you're around, with the things that we read, with the things that we see on social media and the way everything is. It's easy to default into that victim mentality. That's why it's so important to focus on your attitude, because if you wake up with a crappy attitude that day, that might not happen, right? And you think about your attitude, it's the first choice that you get to make every single day before your feet hit the floor. And we all know how we think is how we feel, and how we feel is how we act. So in other words, you absolutely can determine the level of success that you experience. But what are you reading to? What are you listening to? And what are you watching? And here's the piece to the puzzle that people don't talk about a lot is what's the conversation that you're having in your head? And Dr. James P. Gill is a world famous optometrist, also an author of many books, has the second most read book in the prison system, be second to the Bible. Okay. But Dr. James P. Gill did 6 double Ironmans. That's 2 of those in a 36-hour period. The last one he did, he was in his 50s. But I heard him on a podcast say something that just made so much sense. And if you think about how you could apply this to your life with where you're at, okay? They asked him how he keeps going. Like, how do you keep going in the second half of these double Ironmans? He goes, I learned a long time ago to stop listening to myself and to start talking to myself. In other words, we had the ability, now listen to this, we had the ability to determine our own inner experience. And one of the ways you do that is by controlling the conversation in your head and what you're saying to yourself. Because when you listen to yourself, what do you hear? You hear the reasons you can't. You hear the fears, right? You hear the naysayers. You start thinking on, you start buying in and believing in what they're saying. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're control the conversation in your head. Pete Carroll of Seattle Seahawks talks about this all the time. And this goes right into the next play mentality, which I believe in wholeheartedly. Believing that something good is about to happen. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay. I don't mean by sitting back and waiting and being passive aggressive. All right. When this pandemic first started, I made a quick decision. Anyone's dads here on this staff can appreciate this. I was not going to watch all these shows that my kids watched for however many months, all day, every day, right? So I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to watch sports movies that are based on true stories. So Glory Road, Remember the Titans, started doing all that. My daughter turned on Soul Surfer about Bethany Hamilton. She was a 13-year-old surfer, quickly ascending, making her way up to a world-class surfer, and was attacked by a shark. Okay. Ate her arm. Everyone thought she was done. They told her parents to listen, take as much time as you want, as much time as you need. Don't worry about it. Okay. She said to her parents, she says, I need to get back in the water as soon as I possibly can, because as soon as I get back in the water, something good will happen. And with all my clients, one of the things I talk about, think about this in a basketball sense, run to the fight. Okay. Just run to it, run to the adversity, run to the challenge, run to the circumstance, run to the fight, and get right back into it. And purpose is the next thing that we can control. And when I saw this, I absolutely love this, because when you look at this and you really read it, I mean, this is amazing to me. Okay. And when you look this, we also have a diverse coaching staff that genuinely care about us and our development as men. And up at the top, the players come from all over the world. We have different backgrounds and come from different situations. Yet, as teammates, we see one another as brothers. We have each other's backs no matter what, and use our differences as a unifying factor. To me, that's a purpose. To me, that's a huge purpose, because here's what a lot of people during adversity do. They worry about and focus on what keeps them up at night. Guys, when you have a purpose like this, when this is what you feel here and you know here, when you connect that, what you're focused on is what gets you out of bed in the morning. I can't get up early enough. Like, all my guys make fun of me because I'm up at 4:15, 4:30 every day, but I love what I do. All right. When you operate with a purpose like this, you get out of bed every day. Your positive attitude becomes a default. And if you don't have a positive attitude, you catch yourself, right? That's called increased self-awareness. For 36 years of having a negative attitude, he changed his perspective. He changed his attitude. He locked into a purpose. Because when your purpose is greater than your, when your purpose is greater than your pain, then your purpose wins, right? Now think about that. When your purpose is greater than your pain, your purpose wins. And when you guys have a singleness of purpose as a team, that's huge. And how do you fit into that? And what's your individual why? Why are you doing what you do? And one of the things I talk a lot to a lot of the athletic teams I work with, okay, and I talk in the business world about this because they love this visual. Leave your jersey in a better place. When I talk to teams now, think about this power. Think if you were to look at your teammates, okay, and you were to tell them, I refuse to let you fail. And you think of some of the adversity you guys have been through in the academic world, right? In the basketball world, in a drill. I refuse to let you fail. And we always talk about being in the trenches together. We're in this together, okay? Think about the power of this. What if you change that to, I am in the trenches for you, okay? I am growing through this adversity for you, not with you, yes, but I am in the trenches and growing through this for you, not just with you. Think about that when you're doing something for someone, the amount of accountability, responsibility, and ownership that you have and how powerful that is. And as we wind this down, just keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. What's the next play today? What's the next thing when we get off this call? What's the next thing that you can do? What piece of this are you going to take away, just one piece, and apply it to your world, to your life?